Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Martin Willis, your host. I'm very excited about tonight's guest, a longtime NASA surgeon, Dr. Gregory Rogers. He's going to be talking about a very interesting thing that he saw that he wasn't really supposed to see. And I'm very excited to have him on today. A couple of announcements. I decided to change the Friday evening, 6 p.m. to my regular time slot that I was doing for the Everything Else show, which is Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And but don't worry, if you are listening to the show on KGRA radio, you'll still have that 6 o'clock time slot on every Friday. But this week we're coming up with Dean Aliotto. He's always a great guest. He'll be live 8 p.m. on this coming Thursday. So a couple of other things. I recently revamped my merchandise store. So before I just didn't know how to operate certain things there. And now you can get all these things, all the things that I have available in all different colors. And there's some new things in there as well. So check that out. The merchandise link is below in the text on YouTube and in the podcast as well. So I want to also give a shout out to UFO Jack. Jack has been helping me on YouTube. If you are someone that pays attention to my YouTube channel, you'll see that there's a lot of things going on, and that's all due to Jack. And thank you, Jack, for that. And he also put a survey up on there for people to drop in names that they'd like to see as guests on the show. And I want to thank everyone that's paid attention to that and had voted for different people and things like that. So another question I have that I want to ask everyone out there, if you want to email me or put a message out there or whatever, how do you feel about the 2 shows a week? Is that saturation? I'm just wondering how you all feel about that. It's extra work for me. I enjoy it though. I love what I do here, but I just wanted to know from you, the listener or the person on YouTube, is that something that you enjoy, the 2 shows a week besides the audio blogs? And so if you would, reach out to me somehow here and there. If you have an opinion one way or the other, I'd like to hear that. The blog this week is Police Officers Who Became UFO Investigators. That's by Charles Lear. And next week, we have Dan Harari, who will be on next Tuesday. So without further ado, I'd like to bring in my great guest this evening. Hello, Dr. Rogers. How are you?
Well, I'm doing okay.
So great to have you on. I'm excited after I watched my good friend Chris Lito's interview with you, and
Chris is great. He is a former F-16 pilot. He and I got along real well. In fact, I'm going to be on his show again next week.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Chris is a gem. I really always enjoy being on his show or him being on mine, and we hung out together. We did shows together down in Washington D.C. at the hearing down there. A few years ago, the first hearing, he and I worked together on that, and we had so much fun. We were the last 2 people in the door on that hearing. I mean, we squeaked in, and people had cut in line. We almost didn't get in. But anyway, a pleasure to have you on. And if you would, for the person that's never heard you talk about any of this before, just who you are and your background, if you would.
Okay. I was a senior flight surgeon for the United States Air Force, and then I was attached to NASA for space shuttle operations. I was the chief of aerospace medicine for the 45th Space Wing, which was comprised of Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, Patrick Air Force Base, the Eastern Space and Missile Center, and the Eastern Missile Range. And then I was the senior flight surgeon for the Astronaut Rescue and Recovery Team at Kennedy Space Center whenever we would have a launch and landing operation.
Wow. And so that many years, you must have get to meet a lot of really very interesting people.
Oh, absolutely. At Kennedy Space Center, you could meet astronauts, famous men like Buzz Aldrin walked on the moon. He's a historical figure. 500 years from now, they're still going to say Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, along with Magellan and Columbus, and all of these guys. So Anytime you deal with people like that, it's great. But then even for the space shuttle astronauts, while I was working, we launched the Hubble Space Telescope. We repaired the Hubble telescope.
Oh yeah, I remember the mirror was off.
We did all of these other things, and then you could walk around the lunchroom at Kennedy Space Center's main building, and walk around the lunchroom, and I'd be there with my tray, listening to people, and this guy saying, "Oh no, charm quarks have to be much larger than upper down quarks. Hey, I want to talk to this guy. Do you mind if I sit down?" And you sit down, and you sit there and talk to these amazing people. So I've been fortunate enough to meet all kinds of amazing people. And if you meet really knowledgeable people and you listen to them, they will teach you things.
Right. I have a question. Just I want to welcome everyone in chat, and thank you all for being here. And there's a gentleman in there named Roger Murray. If Roger Murray, can you confirm what you put up there? And this has to do with a very long time fan of the show. So I just want to find out if that information is can be confirmed. So Roger, please put in chat that you can confirm what you put in there about, if you would. Sorry about that. So I just wanted to say also, hello, everyone in chat. Thanks so much for you all being here. And I appreciate every week your participation. And we have a person in there, Mendonopoulos is a screen name, and you're going to get some really great questions when she starts going. She really has some wonderful questions. So,
okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, Buzz Aldrin, you think of people like that, and I heard he socked someone in the nose one time, of someone that was bothering him. And I know,
yes, he did.
That happens.
He almost did that in my presence as well.
Well, he can be a little hot-headed, but I also understand people are saying you never landed on the moon, and they're all that stuff.
That was exactly what happened. We were at a book signing at the Books A Million in Merritt Island, just outside of Kennedy Space Center.
Oops, and so, you there?
Can you hear me? Are you hearing me?
Yeah, we had some type of glitch. We both went out. I don't know, internet or something. But
okay.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. You were at Books A Million.
Okay. So it was a break, and so I was talking with Buzz, and this little snot-nosed teenage guy came up and said, "You never went to the moon." And he said, "Get out of my face or I'll punch you. I've done it before." Well, some people got the guy off out of the way. Do you know the story about how Buzz Aldrin saved their lives on the moon?
Yeah, remind me of it because...
Okay, well, that was when I first heard it, because Buzz told me that. He said, people say I didn't go to the moon. I nearly died on the moon. And people don't realize that. When Neil and Buzz had come back into the lunar module, one of them, while they were taking off their spacesuits, hit a switch and broke it. And it turned out it was the switch to the lunar module ascent engine ignition switch. So this is what will ignite the engine so they can leave the moon. And it's broken. So they talk to the guys down at Houston, and they say, "Hey, what's the workaround for this? I mean, the thing's broken." And they said, "Well, we never even imagined anything like that. We'll have to sort of figure out what the workaround is." So they spent several hours, couldn't do it. Well, finally, Buzz Aldrin said, "Hey, look, I've got my pin. I broke off the outer housing, and I think I can stick my pin in there and close that circuit. And if I do that, it'll ignite the engine, and we'll take off just as normal." So while they're counting down 10, 9, 8, 7, Buzz is standing there in the lunar module with his pin, waiting. And when they get to 0, he punches it in, closes the circuit. The ignition switch ignites the engine, and off they go, and they return to Earth. If that had not worked, they were not leaving the moon, and they would have died right there.
Now, I
And
told
so
you
Buzz
that's
was
just
telling
the-
me this.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Continue. Sorry.
Buzz was telling me this right after this little snot-nosed kid said, "You never went to the moon." He said, "Look, we nearly died on the moon."
Yeah.
So he told me that story, and I thought it was awesome.
Now,
Buzz Aldrin is the greatest guy.
Yeah. Yeah. And, imagine it would be hard not to have a huge ego, first of all. I mean, to have something like that. But also, I have to say, Alan Bean, who I talked to you a little bit before the show, who I got to interview, and really I had nice conversations with him. And I said, what was it like standing on the moon and looking back at Earth? I mean, if it was me, I would think, oh my God, am I ever going to get back? Am I ever going to get home? And he said, well, you have to have faith that this is what he said. You have to have faith that, the ladies that stitched the what do they call the suit was, did their job right. And this person did their job right. And you just have to work on the task at hand. And that's all you do is focus on the task at hand. And then when you get into the lander and you focus on leaving, that's how we survived without panicking, basically.
Well, there's a famous quote. One of the astronauts was asked, when you're sitting on the launch pad, what goes through your mind? And I forget which astronaut it was, but he said, well, the one thing you're trying not to think about is that you're sitting on top of 3 million parts, all submitted by the lowest bidder.
Yes, I heard that one. Isn't that funny? I mean, that goes for a lot of things, but that's right. But so I just
for the astronauts, even in the space shuttle, they're sitting on top of more than 4 million pounds of explosives. If something goes wrong,
that's right. Yeah,
it could blast a medium-sized city.
That's right. That's right. I mean, you look at some of these failed launches that just blew up, and there's so much of an explosion there. I mean, just crazy. So I wanted to give, I don't know, this is very sad, someone that's been in chat for I want to say at least 10 years, and has written me every single show that I have a show, always says, can't wait to be there, and blah, blah, blah. And I haven't heard from Renee Cruz in a number of weeks. And I just thought, maybe a break or something. I didn't know, but it's just confirmed that Renee passed away on May 25th. So I just wanted to say, I'm really sorry for all of those of you in chat who knew Renee, that was always participating in conversations, and that's very sad. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. Anyway, so let's get on, if we can. We'll talk about your situation, because this came out of the blue. But before we get there, can you just tell me, did you ever pay any attention to the UFO phenomenon in any type of way prior to what happened in that building?
Well, in either 1969 or 1970, I read the book Chariots of the Gods by Erich von Däniken, and that had me hooked. So I had paid attention to the ancient astronaut theories ever since that time, but I had not expected to be involved in anything at any point.
Yeah. So
yeah, I didn't expect to be in the space program,
yeah.
And then
really?
there I am, chief of aerospace medicine. I supported 31 space shuttle launches, and
wow,
I was right there at the shuttle landing facility 3 miles away for each and every launch, just sitting and waiting and praying that I would not have to do my primary job. And my primary job was to rescue the astronauts and provide any life-saving medical care they would need en route to getting them to a hospital where definitive care could be provided. So, you always want to do your job, but you don't want to do that job. I also did a lot of search and rescue missions with the 41st Air Rescue Squadron, which was also the flight personnel who supported the space shuttle launches. So we did a lot of search and rescue missions. In fact, we got air medals and humanitarian service medals in South Florida after Hurricane Andrew went through and just absolutely tore up South Florida. Being from Oklahoma, I'd seen tornadoes. Well, this looked like a tornado, but it was 60-mile wide tornado. The devastation was unlike anything I'd ever seen.
Yeah, I remember driving that, I think, I don't know, maybe 4 months after, and I just couldn't believe, from, I maybe started in like North Carolina, all the way down, seeing all these trees knocked down all over the place. That was quite a hurricane. Really did a lot of devastation. Yeah.
Yes,
So,
it did.
So let's talk about the day that all this happened.
Okay. Well, we're going to travel back to 1992. It was in the spring, I believe. And as the chief of aerospace medicine, I had to oversee all of the operations that were being performed at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. But the Air Force could not deal with everything themselves. So they hired a civilian contractor called EG&G. That name is famous to a lot of people, but they're a huge government contractor. And so they provided the medical care and also support to the buildings for all the other contractors like Boeing, Northrop Grumman, Morton Thiokol. All of those places were there, but they received support through EG&G. So one of my jobs was to make sure that EG&G was doing what the Air Force had paid them to do. So I would go on inspection tours. Well, I had been this one day to two previous locations. And so I was going to the third location, and the third location, I required an escort because of the security. And so we went in, we examined everything. It was a clean room. So I had to put on a little head covering, had to put on gloves, lab coat, and little non-electrostatic booties. So I went in, saw what I needed to see, and when we came out, the EG&G escort was finished with me. So I said, "Okay, Doc, see you later," and off he goes. And so he has all of his garb off real quick. Well, I took my hat off, I took my gloves off, I hung up the lab coat, took off my booties, threw them down. So I'm like a minute or two behind this guy. Well, as I'm walking out through these double doors, there's this major standing there. He's in his blue uniform. I'm in my flight suit. And he says, "Hey, Doc, I've got something to show you." And I said, "Okay, what?" And he said, "No, I've got something that even you have never seen." And that's what he did, just like that. And I said, "Okay, well, what have I not seen?" And he said, "Well, come here." So he took me inside the office there, and he shut the door and locked it. There were louvers on the door, mini blinds. He closed those, and then he closed them for the windows that were there. So he goes over and sits down at this computer site, and he turns on the computer, turns on the screen, and so I'm just sort of wondering, what's going on with this. I have no idea whatsoever what is going on. Well, he finally gets the screen up, and he says, here you go. So he moved over to the chair just to the left, and I sat down in his chair. So I'm looking at the computer screen just like I am now, except what I'm looking at is a closed circuit television feed. And it looked just like a typical military hangar. There were two guys over to the left that looked like engineer types. They had on lab coats. There were three guys over to the right that had on like Tyvek suits. But right there in the middle of the hangar was a saucer. Now, it wasn't a flying saucer at that time because it was sitting on the ground. But as soon as it began to fly, it was a flying saucer. And I'm looking at this thing, and I said, what on earth is that? Who would make something like that? And he said, oh, I can't tell you that. And I said, why would we make something like that? And he said, we got it from them. And he did just like this.
Well, I got to tell you, that's the most profound statement right there to me.
Yeah. In fact, because everybody at Contact in the Desert was talking to me, and they said, you've got to write a book, put all this stuff down. I'm writing a book. It'll come out in September, and it's going to be called We Got It From Them, because we got it from them.
I'm so sorry I didn't see you there. I wish I knew you were there. I would have loved to have met you. So.
Oh, well, there were at least 10 people there. I got to speak to quite a few, but man, there's no way you could speak to everybody because there were just so many people there. Well, I'm looking at this screen, and this saucer is just sitting there. And so this sound goes off, and so all of the people scatter. Just like a minute after that, these electrostatic discharges started happening all around the vehicle. Now, this thing looked like sort of a huge modified egg.
Do you want me to put up your sketch?
Sure. Put that up. You can see that at the 12:30, the 12 o'clock position is where the U.S. Air Force thing is. I'll explain that in a minute. Then along the beam, there were horizontal rectangles from the 12:30 to 2:30 position, 3:30 to 5:30 position. And then I ended up seeing later from the 6:30 to 8:30 position, and from the 9:30 to 11:30 position. At the 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 9 o'clock positions, there were vertical rectangles, and they were black rectangles. Now, the vehicle itself was pearly white and just sort of gleamed. There were no rivets, no bolts, no panels. There what looks like the antenna sticking up at the top was actually just a pole that connected 3 umbilical hoses to the vehicle itself, and it had that little flat dome on top. Well, as these electromagnetic discharges start going off all around the vehicle, all of a sudden it just lifts off the ground as light as a feather. If I wasn't watching it at the time, you would not actually notice it. The flight mechanism was so smooth. So it just hovers there for a few seconds, and then all of a sudden it rotates clockwise 360 degrees. Now then, at the 12 o'clock position there, as it rotated past me, I saw that it said U.S. Air Force, and above that was the U.S. flight insignia. So, I mean, I'm shocked to see a flying saucer, but now here's a flying saucer that says U.S. Air Force on it. So now I'm, even more shocked than before. But it rotated just absolutely as smooth as anything, clockwise, 360 degrees. Then it rotated counterclockwise 360 degrees. Then it moved to the left and right. Then it moved forward and backward, just like, you're testing a new radio controlled car and wanting to make sure that everything's moving. So it was doing all of this. Then it did something really amazing from my standpoint. At what is the 12 o'clock position where it says U.S. Air Force, the forward section of it, if it was flying, it rose to a 45-degree angle. Now, this is not possible. I flew F-16s, T-38s, AH-1 Cobras, UH-1 Hueys, OH-58 Scouts. There is no craft that can do that. Now, first of all, if it's a fixed wing, you've got an engine pushing from the back to the forward position. So you're going to get lift because of the thrust that you create. If it's a helicopter, you're going to have thrust straight down from the rotor disc. Now, then you can move a rotor disc to 45 degrees. But if you do, that's going to change the thrust vector downward and back. So all of a sudden, as soon as you leave a zero angle and you go to 45 degrees, that helicopter is going to fly forward. It's got to.
Yes.
There's no choice. Well, this thing went to actually a 45 degrees nose high. This was the 12 o'clock position, and it just stayed right there, stable as could be. When I saw that, I said, "Oh my goodness!" And he said, "Yeah, I knew that'd knock your socks off." So, just about that time, knock, knock, knock. There's a knock on the door. So he panics. He flips the computer off, flips the computer screen off, and says, "Don't tell anybody I showed you this. You just showed me a flying saucer. Who am I going to tell it to? It's 1992." Well, anyway, he goes over to the door, opens it up, and this lieutenant colonel and I believe a couple of captains came in. And so the lieutenant colonel said, "Why was the door locked? And what are you guys doing in here?" And so he said, "Well, I had a skin thing and I was afraid it's cancer. So I wanted to show it to the doc. So I just closed the door for my privacy." So now all of these guys are looking at me, and I'm sitting there thinking, I just saw a stinking flying saucer with U.S. Air Force on it. And the guy that showed it to me really should not have shown it to me. Now, I want to emphasize something. There was no listing of any classification on it. It did not say confidential, secret, top secret, anything. There was no identification of any security markings. It did not have a location stamp, a time stamp, a date stamp. It had nothing on there. The screen was completely clean for a closed circuit television screen. Now, all these guys are looking at me and I think, man, you know, if I report this guy, I'm going to probably have to report all four of these guys because they're in this office. If this guy saw the flying saucer and it was shown to him, unless it was part of his official duties, he committed a security violation as well. And so might all three of these other guys. If I report them, I have to go to their chain of command and say, look, these guys showed me a flying saucer. I don't think they were supposed to. That's a problem. I'd have to go to security and report a security violation. And then I would have to go back to my colonel and tell him, sir, I hate to tell you this, but while I was at the Cape, I saw a flying saucer. I had to report everybody. So there's a big security stink going on. And I'm sure you're going to be talking to the general in about 15 minutes. Well, I decided I'm not going to do that. You know, so I did the same thing that many airline pilots, Air Force pilots, naval aviators have done in the past. And I just pretended I didn't see anything. So I just said, I looked at his skin lesion. It wasn't cancer. I got to get going. I got to get back to my clinic. So I left. I never went back to that building. So I got in my car and I had to drive about 30 minutes down to Patrick Air Force Base to my clinic. And I'm sitting there this whole time thinking about this. And so I'm really angry that this guy showed this to me. You know, he should not have done this. But you know, so many times we as human beings, if we see something really strange, the first thing we want to do is share it with somebody. Well, this guy shared it with me and I didn't appreciate it. In a similar kind of thing, I have a whole story about going on the USS Montpelier nuclear submarine. And when I was on there, I was in my NASA flight suit. And so as they were showing me around, they said, well, you're not really supposed to go into the sonar room and see any of this, but if you work with the space shuttle, it's okay. So they took me into the sonar room. Well, they weren't supposed to do that, but you know, that's the kind of stuff that people do. So this guy wanted to share this with me. Well, I didn't share it with anyone. I didn't. When I got back to my clinic, I didn't indicate to anybody anything had happened. I didn't even tell my wife for 15 years about what I had seen. And so finally, in like the 2017 timeframe, when Commander Fravor came forward, and the Tic Tac videos and the gimbal videos and the Go Fast videos came out, and all of that was going on. In November of 2023, I decided I'm going to try something. In April of each year, there's a Navy symposium called the Professional Development Symposium, where speakers talk about all kinds of safety, health, industrial hygiene issues, and all this sort of stuff. So I contacted the commander of the PDS, and I said, look, now that the Navy has admitted that these videos are real, they've confirmed it before Congress, and so it's all been declassified. Can I go ahead and speak about UAPs in my lecture next April? And so he said, well, we'll have to think about that. So we had emails going back and forth for a little bit, and he said, as long as it's done in a professional manner, I'll tentatively approve it, but we're going to have to see what you're going to be saying first. So I made my slide set for the presentation, sent it to them. They reviewed and said, yes, you can give this presentation. Just to be sure, I was working at the McAllister Army Ammunition Plant at the time, and I sent a copy of it to the public affairs officer at McAllister Army Ammunition Plant, and he gave me written permission to go ahead and give this presentation. So then I sent the presentation to the largest Army facility in the state of Oklahoma, over at Fort Sill. And so I sent it to the public affairs officer there. The public affairs officer reviewed it and said, yes, you're cleared to give this. So on April 24th of 2024, I gave an hour lecture that was, just a second.
All right. Well, he'll be right back, I'm sure. I'm not sure what exactly is going on. So I just want to say thank you all in chat for all your questions. I will get to those when I can.
Can you see this?
Oh, here we are. Here we are. Hang on. All right. Hang on just 1 second. Let me blow that up. There you go. Okay.
Oh, okay. So human factors in identification of aircraft, military drones, and other aerial phenomena. So this is what I actually gave my lecture from.
Oh, wow.
Well, it went really well. For the last 15 minutes, all I basically did was talk about UAPs, and that we need to talk to people who witness these the same as we would as if they'd just seen an aircraft mishap. And so I gave guidelines for how to interview personnel witnessing these events. Well, the people who watched it were really great, and they said this was a fantastic lecture. We really liked it. Just about a week and a half, 2 weeks later, I got a letter from the commander, the one who approved me to speak to the Navy Professional Development Symposium, and he said, thank you for doing this. It was a very interesting lecture. So I officially gave a lecture about UAPs to the Department of Defense through the Navy's Professional Development Symposium. Well, the thing is, I knew that I had seen a flying saucer back in 1992. These people did not. So when I retired on April 30th of this year, I contacted a couple of people, Josh Boswell from the UK Daily Mail, and then Tyler Roberts from Total Disclosure. And so I gave an initial interview with each of them about this story. Well, man, it just blew up. Next thing I knew, it was in Newsweek. It was on.
That's right. That's where I read that.
Post.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It went all over the world. And since then, I've been talking on all kinds of podcasts. And in fact, this week, I had this one scheduled for today. And I was joking yesterday about the fact that I didn't have any interviews scheduled for Thursday. Well, it turned out I ended up speaking to Linda Moulton Howe. And so on Thursday, she said, when can you speak with me? And I said, well, I could do it on Thursday. I don't have anyone scheduled for Thursday. So on Thursday, I'm going to talk to her. But last Friday, I was with the American Alchemy. He gave me a shirt that's pretty cool, so I want to show this.
Oh yeah. Hey, I like that retro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm on the board of directors for the International UFO Bureau. Mindy Topfest is the CEO, and they just started a brand new podcast with Mindy, Terry, and Melissa Madrigal. And
Now, what about Jeremy Ray? I want to give a shout out to him.
Okay, yeah, he's
be a
with
great,
the Bureau too.
Yes, great guy.
There's a lot of top people that are in the Bureau. You know, a lot of people don't realize it, but the International UFO Bureau is centered in Oklahoma City. It was started by Mr. Hughes all the way back in 1957, and at the time he was a radio guru. You know, 100,000 people would listen to his radio reports. He had books and magazines, and he went all over the world talking about UFOs. And it turned out in the early 70s, when Jimmy Carter decided he was going to report the UFO incident that he had witnessed, that of all the places that he could have chosen, he went to the International UFO Bureau and made out his report. And so his report is still in the records of the Bureau, and also a copy of his report is in the Presidential Library for President Carter.
Wow, I've got a bunch of questions, and there's also people putting a bunch of really good questions in chat as well. So I want we're gonna have a little longer show than normal here, if that's okay. So one of the things I want to ask you, after you were shown this video, did you ever speak to that major again about any of this?
No, I did not.
Okay. And why didn't you? I mean, did you just want to keep quiet about it and you didn't want to stir the pot?
I didn't even tell my wife for 15 years. I'm not going to go back and talk to this guy. If I go back there, only bad things can happen. You know, if this is somehow a security violation, this could affect my ability to maintain my job position. Yeah, I'm not going to touch that thing with the 10-foot pole.
Okay. And another thing, I know you stay quiet for over 30 years. You already told us what compelled you to talk about it, but before you talked about it, did you feel like feel a moral or ethical? Let me rephrase that. Did you feel moral or ethical pressure to speak up earlier?
Yes and no. I felt like I should speak out. I actually, for a short time, spoke with Chris Mellon about doing this, but decided, you know, I'm not going to do it until I retire. So I retired on the 30th of April of this year. And on the 4th and 5th of May, my story came out.
Wow. Chris is great. I was the first to interview him back in 2015, and I was in touch with him for quite a while. And yeah, he was the right person to contact, I believe, for that. Getting back to the craft, can you elaborate more on, you know, you said it had movement. I know how you said it should have moved forward and things like that. Do you feel as though that was like an anti-gravity type of situation? And do you think it must have been controlled from those umbilicals, I suppose? Speculation, of course. Whoops, you're frozen, it looks like. Can you hear me? Okay, looks like his screen is frozen and he is gone. So hopefully he'll be right back. It's probably the Men in Black again. I'm not sure what happened, but he should be coming right back in. So I want to thank you all for your questions out there, and I'm just waiting for him to come back in. I'm sure he'll be right here, pulling up your questions. Again, I want to thank everyone here. And this question here, here he is. He's back. It's the Men in Black, right? Is that what it is?
I'm not going to comment on that. I told you about my story of the space shuttle novel Impact.
Yes.
I wrote that in '93 because I was very disturbed that we were not sending repair kits up with our shuttle crews. And every time the space shuttle would go up, there would be damage to it, the thermal protection system that would be somewhat putting the crew at risk when they tried to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere. And some of the times the damage was pretty severe, and yet NASA was intentionally not launching repair kits because of the politics and financial things. Well, when I had book signings with Buzz Aldrin and all kinds of things, and 8 years after my book was published, and I said, if we don't have a repair kit, we're going to lose a crew. They launched Columbia. There was damage to the leading edge of the reinforced carbon-carbon on the left wing. When they tried to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere, it burned through the left wing, and we lost the orbiter and crew. So unfortunately, my book prophesied that they're going to do this eventually if they don't send up a repair kit. Well,
That's so sad.
Well, about Contact in the Desert. 10 days after I returned from Contact in the Desert, I got notified by the company that had been selling my book, and they said, we are no longer interested in your novel. We will not print it. We will not distribute it, and all rights are returned to you. Have a good day. So 10 days after I got back, my book was dead.
And what's the reasoning?
They said they had no interest in it.
What do you really think is the deal?
I'm not going to comment. But a good thing, though, Mindy Topfest is familiar with Margie Kay, and she is with the UNX
Yes.
system. She's going to republish Impact, and also is going to publish the new book that I wrote just since I got back from Contact. Everyone kept saying, you've got to write a book and tell everybody this story. So when I got back, I wrote a book. And so it's going to be published on the 22nd of September, I believe. And for the name, I said, I'm not going to get real fancy on this. So I called it, We Got It From Them.
Yeah. Oh, I think that is perfect.
That's the name of the book.
Yeah. And so do you, just along those lines, do you feel that this was a non-human intelligence that made the, say, the prototype, and we reverse engineered something? What do you speculate?
I absolutely believe this was a reverse engineer of a non-human craft. First of all, you're not going to build a craft like this for any of our aerodynamics.
Right.
When we fly, if we've got a helicopter, we fly because of the lift created by the rotor disc. If we fly a fixed wing, you've got engines that are causing thrust that causes air to flow over the wings that produces lift. This is how we fly. The exception to that would be like the space shuttle or the Apollo spacecraft. You put a great big rocket on a launch pad, you ignite it, and it flies into space. These are the mechanisms we use to fly. The craft that I saw was not based on any of that. It had no flight control surfaces. It had no, it was totally smooth. It was just like a pearly egg. There were no seams, rivets. There was no vertical or horizontal controller. There were no ailerons. There was no pitot tube. There was nothing associated with a flying vehicle that I had ever been associated with. So this was completely different. But now it had the umbilicals at the top. Now, what that suggests to me is that this was probably a contractor a government contractor who was attempting to reproduce the vehicle they had found and still hadn't quite gotten all of the kinks out yet. So those umbilicals, I would believe, probably fed electrical power into the vehicle. May have had some sort of fuel that was flowing in there. It might have been control information for how to make it fly. But a real honest to goodness flying saucer that came from another dimension or another world does not have umbilicals tied to it. So I think this had to be a contractor who was doing their best to reproduce this. Here's something that I use as an example. If we wanted to give the United States a huge advantage, we could take the F-22 stealth fighter that we have now. It is the most advanced aircraft ever created for air combat. We could take this to the United States engineers in 1914 and hand it to them and say, okay, here's what an F-22 jet looks like. You create this and you're going to blow everything out of the sky in World War I. And they're going to look at it and say, well, first of all, where's the propeller? Oh, well, it doesn't have a propeller. It's a jet. Well, why does the thing feel so funny when you when you touch it? Oh, well, that's radar absorbent material. Well, we don't see any wood. All of our aircraft are made of wood. I don't see any wood on this thing. We show them inside and tell them, well, these are the defensive computer capabilities. We could show them every single thing about that F-22, but there is absolutely no way that they could reproduce the F-22 in 1914. So it would take them years to even understand the theory of what they were seeing. Exactly. Now, this is only 100 years of human technology. 100 years ago, they would have looked at the F-22 as though it was something from Jupiter. Right. But that's human technology. But they could not reproduce that in 1914. They didn't have the material science. They didn't have the knowledge of aerodynamics. They didn't even know what a computer was. There's a jet engine was beyond anything they could conceive. Like I said, their aircraft were still built out of wood. And here's this F-22 made out of advanced alloys of metals that they'd never even heard of.
Right. I got to appraise a little piece of the flyer. Wilbur and Oval writes very first, craft that went off the little piece of it that was in glass in a house in Massachusetts. So anyway, and it's you're really talking about something here that makes sense, because we didn't have a car before the wheel was invented. It takes a long time. There's all these things that have to be in place. There's not leaps. We don't have leaps in technology, that are like what we see with what you're talking about. I want to ask you, when you were watching this video, did you hear any audio at all?
Yes, I did.
Did the craft make any noise?
The craft made noise. However, because if I tried to describe what I heard and saw, even though this was technically not a classified aircraft, it's still a stinking flying saucer. It's got to be classified. So I don't want to say anything that would give away any of the technical secrets about what it was doing, how it was operating, or anything, even though it would be pure speculation on my part. If that was a test bed vehicle, we have probably subsequently produced an even better, more advanced form of that same craft. So I don't want to give away any information for a more advanced craft that may have been created in the future compared to 1992.
Right. And I'm sure that craft still exists somewhere, and others, like you say. That footage still exists somewhere, and probably a lot more footage than that. And possibly, this is my speculation, possibly other craft as well that they may have found, and reverse engineered or attempted to. It's very, you wouldn't hear me say this 5 years ago, but with the way things have evolved, I think it's possible that, before 5 years ago, I was questioning almost anything when it came to recovered, craft.
Well, you've got to think about it from the standpoint of what the Air Force would do and how it would operate. First of all, somebody's got to come up with some dollars for research and development. Somebody's got to come up with the design. Someone has to come up with material. Someone's got to decide, well, we're going to develop this at this location and we're going to need this kind of security. There are a tremendous number of things that would have to occur before you would even begin the application of creating the kind of saucer that I saw. So this is not something that happened overnight. This was probably the end product of years of development, maybe even decades of development to that point. And how far we have progressed since 1992, I can't know. But I will sort of say a couple of things. To a certain extent, the shape of the craft was sort of like the sports model that Bob Lazar talked about. And the shape of it is sort of like the Tic Tac that Commander Fravor and the naval aviator saw. However, I have to say that what I saw was inside a hangar. I could not see it fly 1,000 miles an hour because it couldn't get through the walls. So when I saw it moving, it was just the most rudimentary of steps for flight that you could have, and it was inside a hangar. So what its capabilities were beyond that, I have no clue.
Right. Wonder if they, I can only speculate, but I wonder if they brought this baby outside, umbilical cord, lengthy umbilical cord, and did more than they did inside the hangar. It makes you wonder.
I think one of the things that really caused me to want to speak out was that when I heard the testimony of David Grusch, I find that his testimony is very compelling. He is speaking about things for which he is cognizant, he is aware, and all of these things. Now, he had to go before Congress and say, there are people who could come before Congress and say, yes, we have reproduction vehicles because I've seen it. But he said, I cannot give you that information because none of the people who have told me their story wanted to come and speak at this hearing. And so particularly, I think in last November, they were again giving David Grusch a hard time. And I thought, well, I can't do a whole lot of things. I was not privileged to know the information that he did, nor would I really be interested in. But I wasn't with the NRO or any of those things. But when he said there are people who have seen reproduction vehicles, I was sitting there thinking, well, I know that's true because I'm one of them.
Right.
So, to a certain extent, I have told people, I've got David Grusch's 6, in the military, you can't guard behind you. So you need a battle buddy to guard your 6. Well, to a certain extent, I'm guarding David Grusch's 6. I can't speak to all of the stuff that he knows, but I can say I saw a reproductive vehicle from advanced technology that was superior to anything we had. So I cannot testify where the original aircraft or spacecraft came from. If there were aliens flying it, if it was interdimensional. I can't speak to any of that, but I can say I saw a reproduction vehicle of a flying saucer. So
Wow.
that's the part that I can say. So that's what I'm doing.
Well, I just want to say goodbye to everyone over at KGRA Radio. We'll be back next week with Dan Harari. And this Friday at KGRA Radio, you'll hear Dean Aliotto. He's going to be on Thursday night and play on Friday. So thank you for that. Now, a question for you. Have you ever spoken to David?
I have not.
I can connect you with him through someone
That'd
if
be
you'd
great.
like, but we'll talk about that offline. But
Sure.
yeah, so it was, I feel the way you do about David Grusch. I think he's solid. I know that article came out, to bash him, to undermine him,
Well, I want
shortly
to say
after.
something real quick.
Yeah.
In my book, I intentionally did this. I said, I have PTSD. Now, then the people in the military go through all kinds of things. So if someone's going to look into my background and say, hey, he had psychiatric mental health problems. Okay, I did. But that does not mean that I did not see what I saw or
Right.
do what I did.
Of course. And look at the position you held. I mean, they're not going to put someone with, major issues as a flight surgeon for, the space shuttle. It's just not going to happen.
Well, if you go into combat, if you see people die right in front of you, I unfortunately had a friend of mine that I was trying to resuscitate who died right under my hands.
I'm so sorry.
When you have seen things like that, if you're normal, that's going to make you abnormal.
Yes.
If that doesn't make you abnormal, there's something wrong with you.
Right. Yeah, that's right. And yeah, I'm sorry you had to go through that. That's terrible. Terrible.
Yeah, I've got lots of stories.
I bet. What about being a whistleblower yourself? Or I don't know if you call it a whistleblower, but you do have the protection, would you testify, for instance, if you were asked to Congress?
Well, if somebody asked me, I would do that. But I'm not going to drive up there and say, "Hi, it's Greg Rogers. I want to talk a while."
Yeah. Well, I'm sure with these appearances that you're making and things like that, the word's going to get out enough. Have you spoken to other people like Lou Elizondo? You said you did Chris Mellon. And Chris may be able to help you if you wanted to do that, move ahead in that direction.
Yeah. I have not directly spoken with Lou Elizondo, but I respect him highly.
Okay. All right. I'm going to put up some questions because we had a lot of people ask questions right from the very beginning, but I was just trying to think there was one more thing I wanted to ask you about the, I do believe it was about the craft. Let me just see. No, that there was some notes I had made ahead of time. You had actually spoken to other astronauts about UFO encounters. Is that correct? Did I hear that right somewhere?
Officially, no. Unofficially, yes.
Okay.
So
what can you say about that? Yeah.
You can choose which answer you like.
I'll take the one that you'll answer.
Okay. The thing is, there are lots of people that have lots of stories, but just like, in 1992, if someone saw me later that day and said, "Hey, Dr. Rogers, by any chance, did you see a flying saucer today?" I was going to say no. I wasn't going to tell anybody I saw a flying saucer. And there's lots of people in the same sort of situation. So I don't think you should really be critical of people when it's like, hey, I'm putting my credibility on the line. And if I say yes, I'm going to have to deal with all of that. So, I've already seen some stuff like that about me, and there's not a thing I can do about it.
Right. Yeah, I would just let that go with a grain of salt. So why do you think this major had access to that, and why would you speculate that he'd show it to you in the first place?
I doubt that he had official access to it. Somebody showed him. And so because somebody showed him, he wanted to show someone else, and I happened to be the person walking along there. There are times when you have classified information, and if it's launch codes for a nuclear weapon, no one's going to risk divulging that. But if you're out at sea and you see an underwater craft that goes by at 300 knots, and there's not a thing that we make that can do that, they will tell people, you can't tell anyone about it. But then when they get home, they say, wow, you should have seen what I saw. And so they may tell their family, they may tell their friends, even though they're not supposed to. But most humans, if they have something really extraordinary, they're going to want to share it.
That's right. And Mark D'Antonio, have you ever heard that name?
Oh, absolutely. He's a great guy. I'm good friends with him.
Oh, you are. I'm good friends with him too. So anyway, that's funny.
Yeah, he's wonderful.
So you know all about his USO encounter of the several hundred knots, the thing that when he was a contractor. And
I have heard about that.
Yeah,
I did not speak to him about it, but I've heard about it.
Yeah, it's kind of what you just mentioned. He saw this. He wasn't really supposed to be where he was, but he was a contractor and was on a voyage in a submarine. And but yeah, you do want to talk to him about that sometime. It's really quite a story, and especially the after results of that when he talked to someone in Washington D.C. about that. They didn't deny it. The fast mover, or whatever they call that, fast walker, I can't remember what they call that. They didn't deny it. They said, I just can't talk about it.
Well, when you talk about transmedium, space is a medium, air is a medium, water is a medium, land is a medium. But those are all media that we are learning to control with our human capabilities. So if we can do it with the limited science that we understand, an advanced civilization, thousands of years ahead of us, could do a lot. If I took a cell phone back to ancient Egypt and I took pictures of people and showed it to them, and another friend was half a mile away and we spoke over there, they would either treat me as a god or burn me as a demon.
That's right.
Just because I had a cell phone. Yeah.
I mean, you think of our leaps in just this, 100 years. It's just been, we talked about, the flyer, Wilbur and Orville Wright, just since then. That's not that long ago in the scope of time where we didn't even believe we could fly,
They did that in 1903. 66 years later, we landed men on the moon.
That's right. I saw that in a meme.
Years. Now then, you'd look back 3,000 years ago. What's the fastest thing you got? Well, if you can ride a horse.
Yeah.
1,000 years ago. Well, if you could ride a horse.
Yeah.
Horsepower was as fast as it was until the Industrial Revolution, and we developed steam engines.
Yeah.
All of that has happened basically within the last 200 to 300 years that we started actually understanding electricity. Maxwell's equations could not have been written in 1500.
I'm going to pull up some questions from our great people in chat here. Mendonopoulos, did you ever have the pleasure of meeting Timothy Taylor, or do you know of him?
I do not.
Okay. I'm not sure myself who that is. And same person asked us, did you ever visit the NASA White Sands test facility in New Mexico?
Not really. I did go to Holloman Air Force Base with part of my duties, but I did not go out to White Sands particularly. Now, then one thing that's interesting about White Sands was that while I was working with the space shuttle, The primary landing site would either be Edwards or the shuttle landing facility at Kennedy Space Center, but the tertiary site was always White Sands Space Harbor. Now then, in, I believe it's 1982, the Kennedy Space Center was not available. They hadn't built the shuttle landing facility yet. Edwards was having bad weather, and there was a spacecraft that I believe is Columbia that landed at the White Sands Space Harbor back in like 1982.
How about that? I know I lived, excuse me, right near Pease Air Force Base with a 10,000-foot runway, and I know that was an optional place if ever need be, because that's one of the, I mean, that's an amazing runway there that's not even barely used today. So here's another one from Fred. In light of what Dr. Rogers just talked about, what does he think about Elon's SpaceX rockets? What's the point of them if we are so far ahead of that? I understand the question. It's like, if we actually have this technology, do you think, let me just rephrase his question. You get the gist of it, but it makes you wonder, if we had this technology in 1992, it seems like we could be using it for possibly space travel or something like that. I mean, do you think that'll ever happen?
I think it could happen. But just because you have knowledge of how something works doesn't mean that you can reproduce it. And so, like I was saying about the F-22 back in 1914, if SpaceX, Elon Musk, or NASA had developed enough technology that we could launch from Earth without having to build these huge, massive rockets, I think we would be doing so. You know, for the space shuttle, it weighed 4.7 million pounds at the time of launch. But when the orbiter came back, it was barely 400,000 pounds remaining. But it took more than 4 million pounds of explosive to get it into space.
That's right.
Now, it could glide back. If somebody could substitute some other form of energy to produce liftoff for satellites to go into space without having to use rocket chemical energy, I think someone would be doing it. But even though we have learned a lot, we don't know enough.
Right. Yeah. I know the massive amount of energy to get up to whatever, I forget what it is, to break the, the orbital pull to get through that. But it's
if you're talking about like the translunar insertion burn for the Apollo, they had to exceed 27,000 miles an hour to break free of Earth and head for the moon. Now, one of the things people didn't know about, and I didn't even think about it until I was talking to Buzz Aldrin, you're going uphill. As you're moving away from the Earth, the gravity of Earth is slowing you down, because once the chemical engines have stopped, you're gliding. Well, as they continued to travel out toward the moon, they got slower and slower and slower, so that by the time they finally got to the section where the Earth's gravity was less than the moon's gravity, the moon finally started pulling them, and their speed had gotten down to like 8,000 miles an hour. And so even though they had left Earth at 27,000 miles an hour, by the time they got into the moon's gravity, they'd slowed down to about 8,000 miles an hour. Then once they got into the moon's gravity, they started speeding up, and they gained speed the closer they got to the moon.
Wow. Yeah. One of the things I've always wondered about, when they say space travel, is, the speed that you have to go, and then to actually, there's a slowdown period too that's involved in this. If we could get up anywhere near a quarter of the speed of light, I mean, there's got to be a braking inertia too, and time involved in that.
to me, one of the things that I find most fascinating is that we can look through the history of science, and the cutting edge of science has been wrong most of the time. At one point we thought the sun revolved around the earth. That was wrong. We have had all kinds of scientific theories, and they've had to be disproven. And then we move to a new theory. Then it gets disproven. We move to a new theory. We think we are so advanced with the theories that we have right now. But what is gravitational waves, and are the gravitons? When you're talking about quantum mechanics, is there quantum gravity? We don't know any of those things. We're not even close to understanding it. If we could understand 0-point energy, if we could understand using the gravitational force of quantum gravity, whatever it might be, we would be talking about a whole level of science that is orders of magnitude above where we're at. So we can say, well, no, nobody can do this. Well, no one can do it right now. We can't do it.
Right.
But, in 1820, there were questions of whether or not if you got on a train, if the speed got to 60 miles an hour, would the human body fall apart?
Right.
Well,
that's right. Yeah. And you know what they base that on? They base that on if you was falling off something. That's what I read about that. And because they knew you'd hit about that speed by the time you hit the ground if you fell off a roof or something. Of course you die then.
Well,
I know
there is far more that we don't know than what we do know. And a lot of the stuff we think we really know and understand, we don't know and understand very well. And I can guarantee you 200, 300, 400 years into the future, they're going to know about a lot of stuff, and they'll look back at us and say, can you believe that? They had to use rockets to go to space. How primitive were they? Well, we're not primitive compared to the caveman, but if you're talking about Star Trek, we're primitive.
Yeah, we're always thinking we're on the pinnacle of knowledge and technology. Have you heard or seen of any country's designs on airships that are very closely resemble classic UFO shapes, such as Lockheed's hybrid thermal airships, Russia's DP-27, Anuta drone, or UK John West skyship? Do you know of any of these?
Well, I think airships, when you're talking about cigar-shaped UFOs, the Goodyear blimp at the Super Bowl could be mistaken for something like that. But now then, at the time, for instance, the Graf Zeppelin, we had to build it in that shape because of the material science that we had. If we wanted today to build the same kind of thing and make it as a sphere, we have the capability of doing that. But the only problem is that that would be so limiting to your flight characteristics that there's no reason to do it. But we could do it if we wanted, but who wants to do that? We could still build stagecoaches if we wanted, but who's going to drive them?
Yeah, pretty funny. Was there ever, when you were with NASA, was there ever like any unspoken rule that you know about, like the talk of UFOs was, or was there ever anyone talking about it, but was it like something you're not supposed to talk about?
Yes. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Now, I had a visiting senior scientist, NASA scientist, astrobiologist on this podcast, and he told me there was water cooler talk. That's what he would call it. And he said this was a fascinating thing. I brought it up many times. He said that among his peers, he would say they would talk about if a civilization could get through the bottleneck of technology without blowing themselves up, then they would be traveling the stars. I thought that was fascinating.
Oh, well, one of the great things about working with all of the people at Kennedy Space Center was that there were literal rocket scientists, there were astrophysicists, there were electrical engineers, there were every kind of engineers, there were pilots, there were astronauts. And when all these people get together and talk, they talk about all kinds of amazing things. It's not exactly water cooler talk, but if you get certain groups of people and you put them in front of a room with other scientists and NASA managers and so forth, and they say, have any of you ever seen anything even remotely similar to UAP? They're all going to say no. Now then, you get them all at a bar, get 2 or 3 brewskis in them, all of a sudden they're saying, well, let me tell you what happened on my mission. And then they'll talk about that. But then the next day, when you talk to them officially, no, they never saw anything.
Wow. So what would you say to, like right now, if someone's listening and they were either a government or they had either a government or military role and they witnessed something similar to you, but they're remaining silent, what would you say to that person if they were watching right now?
Totally depends on the circumstances. If their job is on the line, they've got a family to feed, and they feel like if I speak up, my career is going to get flushed down the toilet, keep quiet. It's not worth it. Now, then, if they're in a position where they could speak out, maybe they've retired like I did. Maybe they have left the military and they're working in a totally different kind of job where there's no security issues that would arise. Then maybe they should say something. But I'm not going to tell someone else what to say, because as soon as you start down this road, I can speak from experience, there's going to be people throwing rocks at you.
Mm-hmm. And let's just go back to 1992. You were in the room. The door was locked. The louvers were down. You're watching this video. What if instead of the knock on the door, someone had unlocked the door and just walked in? What do you think? Do you think you would have been in trouble right then and there?
I think I probably would have been.
Not really your fault. Not really your fault that you.
Well, I would probably have a lot of opportunities to explain why I was where I was and what I was doing. And I would probably explain it to a number of official personnel. I should not have been shown that video.
Yeah. Did you have resentment about it?
Oh my goodness, yes, man. On the way home, if that guy had been in the car, I would have told him all kinds of things. But
because especially when they came in and asked what you were doing, I'm sure that really made you tense.
Yes. Well, I was a major. This guy was a major. That's one thing. When the lieutenant colonel came in, he outranked both of us. And so making a statement to a superior officer is a serious thing in the military. So, that made it a whole other ballgame.
Right. So I'm going to just pull up another question here in chat. The fact that it had a U.S. Air Force emblem, could their description have been Yankee Blue passage material? I'm not really sure what that means. You might know what it means.
Well, the concept of passage material is you're going to give people information that you expect to get leaked. And in doing so, you're providing misinformation or disinformation according to what you're wanting to do. For instance, when we were going to bomb Iran, we sent some of the B-2s flying to the west. And they made a big show of these B-50 or these B-2 bombers flying to the west. What they didn't show you was that there were 7 B-2 bombers flying to the east, and they were the ones that were about to drop the massive ordnance penetrator on Iran. So you look over here, so you don't see what's over there. So that's one of the things that you do. If you don't want them to look one direction, you distract them with something else. So passage material would be information that you're intentionally leaking.
I get it.
Think of D-Day. We were going to land at Normandy, but we put a tremendous amount of effort into trying to make the Germans think we were landing at Calais.
Yeah, now, we had balloon tanks there and stuff.
Yeah,
right.
Now that was a massive conspiracy, but the conspiracy was there to save the lives of the men going ashore at Normandy. So yes, it was a government conspiracy, and it was a massive one, but it was an important conspiracy, and it was a required conspiracy. So all conspiracies are not inherently bad.
Do you think this craft, I know you were shown it, through a government facility, but do you think it's a possibility that this was in private hands, like a company that may have manufactured this? Because I'm just bringing this up because, for instance, the Schumer Rounds thing last year actually had I'm trying to think exactly, eminent domain type of situation where they'd be able to see what these companies had, and that was shot down. But since this is outside of congressional, go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah.
One of the first things people need to think about is that the United States Air Force has never built an airplane. They give the requirements of the aircraft that they want built. For instance, for the advanced fighters, there was a YF-22, which was an experimental F-22 type, and there was a YF-23. They were built by competing consortiums. So they were owned by corporations, defense contractors. They were not owned by the U.S. Air Force. When the U.S. Air Force made the decision that they were going to go with the YF-22, they then went back, redesigned the F-22 for more advanced stuff. And then when the actual model of the F-22 was available, the U.S. Air Force purchased the F-22, put their pilots in it, and started flying. Before the F-117 ever flew as a F-117 for the U.S. Air Force, it started out at the Lockheed Skunk Works as a thing called Have Blue. And so they were testing the technology to see, will this actually work? So it had flight insignias on it. It was owned by Lockheed, but it looked as though it was a U.S. aircraft until they actually made the selection of the F-117, and they went into the production model of the F-117 Nighthawk, and the U.S. Air Force purchased it. That first aircraft that was purchased was the first one that was in the U.S. aircraft inventory. So until that time, it was owned by the Skunk Works.
I get it. And yeah, that makes absolute total sense. I never thought of it exactly in that way. Another question here: was the video shown within a sensitive compartment and information facility, a skiff of any type?
It was not, but the entire building I was in was this closed security system. We didn't have iPhones back then, but I had a pager. I had to leave the pager out in the car. I could not take any electronic equipment in. On Cape Canaveral, you had to get permission before you could even take a photo of the beach. So
wow,
this was a security area. This, at the time, it was high tech, but in one of our buildings, the floors had sensitized capabilities so that from the moment you walked in, it could track your footprints so that no matter where you went in the facility at any given moment, they would know where you were because they had tracked every step you had taken inside that building.
Wow. Isn't that something? I had no idea that was that guarded.
Yeah, and the thing is, I'm saying that because that was 30 years ago. I'm sure we've got better stuff than this now.
Right, right. Now the question was: a tether possibly supplying the craft with helium or other similar fuel-based or known airships designs that utilize such fuel? And you saw no exhaust of any type of
there was no exhaust. Now I wasn't looking through a FLIR, forward-looking infrared, so I couldn't see if there was any radiation of that type. But those umbilicals were doing something. If those umbilicals were not required to make that vehicle work, they wouldn't have been attached. So those 3 umbilicals were attached for some reason, and that's one of the major reasons that I believe it had to be a test vehicle, probably owned by a contractor or a contractor consortium. Mm-hmm. And so that was the test bed program. That craft was not ready to go fly through the skies. This was a basic test of technology. I mentioned the HAB Blue. In 1976, they had the HAB Blue, and they were testing how it would work, but it was not a functional system at that time. So the HAB Blue ended up becoming what was the F-117, but that was a decade later. So they were going through testing and development for more than a decade before they actually had the F-117 as a flyable bomber.
Wow. Okay. Here's a question from Tony. In light of the recent article, he's talking about the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah.
About the about UFO hazing. Did any doubt ever enter your mind whether you may have been a victim of the hazing, or like most reasonable people, did you just dismiss the article?
That is one of the craziest things I've ever heard.
Yeah. I thought it was nuts. Yeah.
I don't know how the Wall Street Journal could put that out with a straight face. I mean, it belongs in Mad Magazine or something.
Good for you.
That was the biggest piece of garbage I believe I've read in a long time.
Yeah.
How on earth the Wall Street Journal could produce some kind of a story like that and try to pretend it was legitimate, I've got no understanding.
Yeah.
If I had been on that editorial staff and they said, well, this is what we're going to do, I would have quit.
Yeah.
I would not have been part of that.
The thing that I spoke with Bob Salas, about this whole situation.
He's a great guy.
And yeah, he said he is. And he was contacted by that reporter since, I think he said, last year. And they were like best buddies. So the whole time he was planning on sabotaging him. And he had no idea. He was acting like it was going to be a really good article. And that's what he came up with. It was rather sad.
Well, that's terrible because Robert Salas is a really terrific guy. I believe everything that he has said. I've talked to him several times. He was doing nuclear service to this country. A lot of people don't really think about the job they have. Every time they go to work, there's a chance that someone somewhere is going to do something really stupid, and they're going to have to insert that key and launch an intercontinental ballistic missile. And I believe the warheads were 1.3 megatons. A 1.3 megaton warhead was going to fly to another part of the earth and absolutely destroy a massive city. And this was your job. He has my complete respect.
Yeah. Talk about PTSD. Wow. Okay, here's another one. Are you familiar with what an electrostatic lifter is?
Yes, I am. Now, I don't believe this was what was going on here, but the only way I would be able to explain it would be to tell information that I don't want to tell. So I'm just going to say this did not impress me as one at all.
I got it. Thank you. Polly has this question, Dr. Rogers, in your opinion, who really holds the truth for disclosure? The government, the Vatican, independent researchers, experiencers?
For the United States, it's the United States government. But as soon as you say that, you have to say, well, what is the government? Well, the president is the government. He's the chief for the executive branch. Well, the Pentagon is the government. The FAA is the government. The NRO is the government. The CIA is the government. The Supreme Court is the government. Congress is the government. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration is the government. The Tennessee Valley Authority is the government. We have so many sections and divisions of the government that many times have duplicated the same mission type, and many times are sequestering information. You know, when we saw 9/11 and they evaluated, if all of the government agencies had spoken to each other, they could have figured out these guys are going to try to do something, and we could have stopped those terrorists. The only problem is there's too many areas of the government that do not speak to other areas of the government.
That's right.
And so everything is so segmented. There's no one area that has control of all of the information. So even if you had disclosure from one agency, all they could do is reveal the knowledge from that agency, and they couldn't do it from the information stored in 23 other agencies.
That's right. And that there were some changes because of that. I spoke with an FBI agent last year, and we talked about 9/11. And he said there was a stovepipe situation where, the information was exactly what you're talking about. No government agencies reacting with each other. And he said since then they've changed some things. So that won't happen again. But I don't know if they've changed them enough. There's still that.
I doubt it. I doubt it. There is so much partisanship, even within just the military. The Navy does things completely different from the Air Force. The Air Force does things different from the Army. The Army does things different from the Space Force. Now then, they tried to get together what's known as the Defense Health Agency. And they thought, what we will do is take all of the medical assets from all of these areas, combine them into one group, and then all of these physicians, nurses, all of these medical systems will work similarly, and then we can just parcel them out. If the Air Force needs somebody, we can send out this part of the Defense Health Agency. If the Navy needs something, we can do this part of the Defense Health Agency. When I heard about this, I said, that's going to be the biggest pile of foul material I've ever heard of. And sure enough, it was. The Navy's not going to give up the things that they want to do the way they want to do it. Even with people on flight status. The Army had their own form for DNIF, duty not involving flying. The Air Force had a totally separate one. The Navy had a separate one. In fact, they wouldn't even call it a form. They called it a CHIT, C-H-I-T. So I want to spell that. But I mean, the Navy has to do everything totally different. These organizations are not going to cooperate with each other for any of these things. What on earth makes you think they're going to reveal secrets that are hidden so deep within the government?
Very good point. Here's another question from Polly. If the Tic Tac is, quote, ours, where are the warehouses? Who is flying them? And I'm sure you heard about that speculation that Lockheed Martin says.
Yes. Well,
I
now
mean,
the
they
thing
didn't
is,
say it, but Ross
yeah.
Coulthard said he heard
Now
information.
it could not have been. I can absolutely say it was not Lockheed Martin in 1992, and the reason was Martin Marietta and Lockheed had not joined forces until 1995. So Martin Marietta was a completely different organization at that time. Now then, after 95, if they joined forces, they could produce something like that. And as I said, what I think I saw was 99% chance owned by a defense contractor. So the defense contractors are getting together to do these things. And if you're on the verge of creating something totally new and different, you're not going to let somebody else know about it, especially an opposition. If you go back to the 1950s, the British Overseas Air Corporation, I think, BOAC, was coming up with their form of early jet travel. Well, Boeing was coming up with the 707. So the American airliners were flying 707s, and the British were flying their own sorts of jets. But the secrets of the Boeing 707 were not going to be shared with the British aerospace company because they had millions of dollars on the line. Even though companies have all of these other things going on, corporate profits, the retention of power, the ability to go to the next generation of technology, those are all things that are uppermost in the mind of all defense contractors. So they're going to have that in their boardroom, and then in whatever secret places they have below the boardroom, they're still going to be driven by those factors.
Right. I mean, if only we could just see all the technology that they have that's top secret. I mean, we may not even understand some of it. I mean, I'm sure there's, you've heard about Skunk Works saying that they could take ET home now. This was way back in the 90s.
Yes.
Well,
what if you were the first company in the world that came up with fiber optics? Are you going to share that information with anyone else? Or are you going to try to make all the money you can because you're the only people who can use fiber optics? Now, that's not space technology per se, but if you're the only company with fiber optics, you're going to make a ton of money.
Right. So I got to tell you
you're not going to share that.
Yeah. Funny story. Back when I was a kid, I knew someone that had developed the Velcro machine, and that was guarded. They had armed guards around that machine when they were transporting it.
Yes.
I mean, that's Velcro.
Well, do you know what the most secret chemical in World War II was? Teflon.
Oh my goodness.
Tetrafluoroethylene for some of the components for the nuclear bombs that we were making. They accidentally discovered tetrafluoroethylene, and it had the capability of resisting breakdown, of securing electronic communications without interference. And so because it was being used as a key element on Fat Man and Little Boy, Teflon was one of the most secret chemicals on the face of the earth. And then when they developed newer, better stuff, they said, well, hey, what if we just put it on pans and fry eggs with it?
And it's probably not good for you either. It's one of those forever chemicals.
The TFOA and PFOS, those things are terrible. They're everywhere. You can go to Antarctica. You can
Yeah.
take
In
blood
Africa,
from
jungles, everywhere. Yes,
and they're going to have those chemicals inside them. They're
that's right.
forever chemicals. We're never going to get rid of them.
Yes, I've read about that. That is it's pretty scary. Here's from Terrence. What do you think they have now, and how can it rotate, hover, turn, and be silent? And thank you for your service.
Okay. As soon as you have new technology, you can do new things with it.
Hmm.
Have you ever watched the robot show that I think is on Discovery Channel? And they build these robots and they go attack each other.
Oh, okay.
Every time somebody comes up with a brand new robot that destroys everybody else, the next year, everyone has studied what that robot did. And when they come out, they have totally new technology to destroy that one. And so another one becomes champion. And then all of the people making the robots come back and do that. I think that is technology in a microcosm of what is going on worldwide. BattleBots. That's the name of it. BattleBots. My wife and I love to watch that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. What makes you think the footage was real? I mean, what would be the purpose if it wasn't? Right?
I have seen all kinds of stuff in my lifetime, and I saw everything that we had. I had seen closed circuit television for lots of different things. There is no way anyone's going to convince me that what I saw was not real. It wasn't realistic. It was real. There's a big difference. You know, you can watch some of the AI stuff, and yes, it looks very realistic, but it's not real. What I saw was real.
Yeah, so, I mean, if you saw this today, we can't trust anything we see actually today. I feel that way. You know, I mean, just about anything can be done through AI and CGI.
We are definitely getting there.
Yeah, it's pretty scary. Okay, why do you think all the world this is from Terrence again. Why do you think all the world governments continue to lie to us about this? Don't they understand disclosure could come at any second from anywhere?
Well,
that's your opinion.
Who's the most powerful country on earth?
America right now. Yeah.
Who is afraid that the United States are going to put 35 or 50% or 75% tariffs on things that are bought in the United States? Everybody. We do not live in a singular world. Everything is global. You know, if you look at the seeds that are used to grow crops, I believe that I've read that over 90% of all of the seeds planted in the world come from 10 different corporations. This is a global community, and you step out of line, you do too much, man, you're going to get hammered. And I think it's fear.
Yeah. A lot of what is happening like that is based on fear. You know, I do believe that's the base of a lot of skeptics. And you know, if something really bothers them, then they want to rationalize why it can't be true, instead of really looking into it thoroughly. You know.
Well, think about this. I mean, it's been mentioned time after time after time. What are some of the facilities that are most visited by UAPs? Wherever we have nuclear weapons. If we were traveling to another world and they were inferior to us, and we were looking at them, checking them out, trying to keep them from killing each other, all of a sudden we see one tribe that develops trinitrotoluene when no one else does. That's TNT. And so they have TNT. Nobody else has TNT. And because they have TNT, they go destroying all of the other civilizations on that world. If we were monitoring this, would we want to step in and do something? Would we pay attention to that? Well, we probably would.
Mm-hmm. I know there was a great UFO researcher for a long time, Stanton Friedman. Did you ever hear of him?
Yes, Dr.
Yeah.
Friedman.
And he used to say, well, he used to always correct people. He was not a doctor. He always corrected people. People called him Dr. Friedman all the time. But
well, he deserved it regardless.
Yeah, that's right. He used to say that, the kids found the matches. And that's, that's why he thinks they showed up after, 1945, 1944, whenever the first test was. Was it 1945? Yeah.
Do you know what LIGO is?
LIGO?
LIGO is an experiment that was created to discover gravitational waves. And
okay.
Part of it was in the northern U.S. in the state of Washington, I believe, and then the other section was down in like South Africa, and they were able to actually detect gravitational waves from two massive black holes that hit each other. Well, now that we have that technology, we could detect those gravitational waves. 20 years before that, those same gravitational waves could have hit Earth and we wouldn't have known about it. So the ability to figure out what is going on is based on the level of technology that you have available at any given moment. If aliens had a technology that a nuclear detonation somehow fragmented space-time itself and sent out some sort of information through space-time that really advanced technologies could discover. As soon as they said, hey, here's this ripping space-time, somebody's just set off a nuclear weapon. Well, it came from over there. Let's go check those guys out. We don't know. There is more to science that we don't know than what we do know. And when we set off a nuclear weapon, there could be types of effects upon space-time that we just don't even conceive.
Right. Yeah, I do believe we know so little in general. There's that great saying that says, what we know is a drop, what we don't know is an ocean. But here's a question for you, and I'd like to elaborate a little bit on it. UFOs were reported before the United States ever existed. Why is everything now supposedly man-made? I just heard someone on a show that was not about UFOs, but the UFO topic came up, and the guest said, well, I really do believe that everything people are seeing is man-made. And this bugs me because just what this person, Terrence, is saying right here is that people have reported these objects doing this unusual flight characteristics at really high speeds for 50 years. So you can't believe that they're man-made 50 years ago or 75 years ago that would do that.
I would go back to the Wall Street Journal. There are people who want other people to believe certain things. When we go back, you look at the Bible. Elijah walked across the Jordan River, and all of a sudden, this flying chariot came down. He got on the chariot. He knew it was coming, and so he was prepared for the coming of this flying chariot. This flying chariot comes down. He gets on it, takes off through these clouds. Well, those people did not know how to describe a spacecraft. The fastest thing they knew of was a chariot. If they saw a space shuttle launch, and we took them to Kennedy Space Center, and they launched, and they saw these 7 people in these funny orange suits get in this huge craft, and all of a sudden it launches with terrible noise. When we were standing 3 miles away at the time of launch, somebody could stand right next to you. You could scream as loud as you wanted, and they couldn't hear you.
Wow.
Car alarms would be set off 10 and 12 miles away from Kennedy Space Center because of the vibrations. Now, then when these people saw that and they go back to ancient Israel, how are they going to describe it? Those things are documented through history. It doesn't, the manas in ancient India, the star people in the Anasazi, the Incas, the Aztecs, the Mayans, they all have stories of things like Viracocha coming down from the sky and teaching them all these things. None of this is new. It's been around for a long time. It's just that the people who are now involved with it don't want everyone else to know. So they're still going to tell the same lies, just like the Wall Street Journal did.
Right. Here's an interesting question. Have any foreign entities contacted you after disclosing your story?
Well, technically, yes. There's like a morning show, sort of like Good Morning America or something, from Sydney, Australia. And so they contacted me and asked if I would mind being on their show. So I said, okay. So I get to sit right at my desk, just like I am now. And I got to speak to these people in Sydney, Australia. So yes, I was contacted from a foreign country, and it was a morning show for people who were driving to work in Sydney, Australia. So yes, I've had that. I've had people from England, Germany, India, all kinds of stuff contact me, but just as individuals, not as the leaders of a country. Take me to your leader, and none of that kind of stuff. No one has offered for me to run their country for them, which is a good thing because I would turn that down.
Well, I have to do a shout out to Australia because they're one of the biggest listeners of this show. It's United States first, and usually Australia or England, UK okay. Second. Yeah, there you go. Look at the hat. Oh, I love it.
This is an Australian bush hat that I got from an Australian flight surgeon. I traded one of my American flight suits for this. So this is a real honest to goodness Australian bush hat.
Wow.
So
you got the Crocodile Dundee thing going on there. That's great. And here's a compliment to you. This is one unique guest. This is one unique guest you have here. I think that sounds like a compliment in some type of way.
I can't hear anything.
We'll take it. Can you hear me now? You're not okay. You're gonna have to go in your settings. You unplugged. You must have unplugged. I don't want to end the show like this. Okay. Let's see. Maybe he'll figure this out. You cannot hear me, correct? Cannot hear me. It's a setting.
I'm lost.
Like down below setting. Okay. I think when he put his hat on, he must have unplugged his. I don't have a phone number. Yeah. Well, we're going to have to end the show then. I'm terribly sorry. I mean, you could talk, but you can't hear me to know that you could talk. Can you hear anything? Can't hear anything. He's trying to figure it out, I see. Well, I think he's been a wonderful guest, and this is really a sad way to end the show. But I want to thank you all for your... All right, does he hear me now? Can you hear me now? I can't really write to him because I don't think he sees the private chat. Let me see if he does. Hang on, everyone. We'll see. He just went out. He's going to try to come back in again. We're going to give him a couple minutes, but I want to thank everyone right now for all of those who have joined in today. There's some great questions. Still a lot to get to. He's coming back in. We're going to see if he can hear me now.
I can see.
You can hear me now?
Oh, hold it.
All right. Hear me now.
Okay. Yeah. I actually did it. My fault. When
Okay.
I put on the Australian hat, I turned the volume down.
Okay. Well,
So,
I'm glad you're back because I was just about ready to
I'm
end the
back.
show.
That's
And
embarrassing.
we're going to go for another 15 minutes if you're all right with that.
Sure.
Okay. Because we haven't even asked a lot of the questions in chat. And unfortunately, we didn't have a phone. We could have had taken in some calls. That would have been a lot of fun. So I haven't read this question yet. I'm going to read it now. You mentioned a craft earlier that was inside a hangar. It's sealed inside a clear structure in a liquid for the purpose of maneuvers to shield. You couldn't tell. There were people around it, so there was
Yes,
like normal air, right?
Yes, it was just sitting there, and then it started moving. So there was nothing else there.
I see. Okay, so I think we got through most of the questions. So I'm really interested to know how your journey goes ahead, and I would really love to know if you were ever contacted to actually, talk about this. I actually do have a connection with a few people. Tim Burchett, for instance, he's someone that I can actually get a hold of through someone.
I love the fact that he said, we're going to get to the bottom of this.
I know. That's right.
Okay. Yeah. Keep working, Mr. Burchett.
Yeah. Yep. And you know what I really loved about being at the two hearings I was at, is it's completely bipartisan. I mean, you would see AOC in the same room as Matthew. What was his name? Get it. I can't think of his name right now. But you'd see people that normally would fight about anything, and they're just getting along fine. They both are curious and had really good questions.
Here's something I have said many times down through the years, and I absolutely stand by this. I had friends of mine who died for this country. They did not put a Democratic flag on that coffin. They did not put a Republican flag on that coffin. They put an American flag on that coffin.
Yes.
If our people are willing to give their lives in order to protect this country, our elected officials have more obligation to the United States people than they do the Republican or Democratic parties.
I totally agree with you. And I can't stress that enough. I think there's way too much a division, and you're bad, I'm good. You're, all that stuff.
Well, our
very divisive.
Our founding fathers didn't get along very well, but at least they understood compromise. We've got to get together if we're going to beat the British. So they compromised.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. I blame a lot of social media for the division too, media and social media. Anyway, here's this question here. I can't even pronounce that word, aerogel. If it's a buoyancy aid, how can it displace air and move so quickly? Do you know anything about that?
I think I know what they're talking about, and the reason it can't displace air and move so quickly is because it's not capable to do so.
I was told that there was some type of material that is floating. This was I had Professor Simon on, and he was talking about this type of material that was developed by Lockheed, and that you could actually float up for high surveillance, and it was a material, not a gas.
But there's still going to be a force variant within the universe. There's going to be a boson, a force element with a +1, +2, +3 rotation of the Planck constant that is going to be affecting that material. The material itself is going to be made of a fermion. That's going to be +1/2, 1.5 integer spin of the Planck constant. But there's no way any material is going to rise like that without being affected by bosons.
Hmm.
That's
you.
just quantum mechanics.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So a question for you: what are you hoping to achieve by talking about this?
Well, I cannot tell everything that David Grusch does, and he knows a lot. But I can say, look, he told you that someone saw an alien reproduction vehicle. That was me. I saw that. So I can stand up and do that. And then that takes the pressure off him so he can tell the rest of the story and people will listen. I can't
Mm-hmm.
tell the rest of his story.
Right, right. And as a, from a medical perspective, how would you interpret consistent reports from credible individuals like pilots, astronauts, engineers, people like that, from the medical side? Like, I'm sure you're trained to, assess the person when psychologically. I mean, I know you're a flight surgeon, but I mean, how would you, from the medical perspective, what do you think about when people are talking about that?
Well, I'll tell you one thing that I speak about a lot, and that is the special characteristics of UAPs to turn at high speeds and using high G forces. When I went through the centrifuge before I flew F-16s, I went up to 8 Gs, and
Wow.
I'll tell you, it is a massive force. When the F-16 is a 12G aircraft, but the only problem is the pilots are only 9G humans, so they have limiters to prevent the jet from exceeding the capabilities of its pilots. And Chris Lado knows all about this. We were talking about it because he's a Viper driver, so he knows all about it. When I know what G forces do to you, and I know what 5 Gs feels like, 6 Gs feels like, 7 Gs feels like, 8 Gs feel like, and then somebody tells me this vehicle executed a 600 G turn, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
That's beyond anything. Even an F-16 jet could not tolerate a 600 G turn. It would literally fall apart. The materials could not tolerate that, and yet we are seeing these things happen. We are monitoring them with advanced radar systems. We are monitoring what they're doing, and we are watching them do this. And people can say, we don't have evidence. We have lots of evidence.
Yeah.
If we had the evidence that that the F-18s had of the objects they were monitoring, and instead of a UAP, that was a person with a gun and they shot somebody, those videos would be good enough to put them away for the rest of their lives. Those videos are authoritative.
Right. No, totally agree. Totally agree. Well, it's been wonderful. I've really enjoyed our conversation very much. And I want to thank everyone also that has been in chat. Thank you all for participating tonight. And so anyway, I'd like for you to, if you wouldn't mind staying in the back room, in the green room, I'd like to have a chat with you afterwards.
Sure.
But for now, I want to say goodbye to you, and thank you so much for being on this show.
Okay, well, it was fun.
All right, great. All right, everyone. So we're going to be back this coming Thursday at 8 p.m. If you're listening to KGR, it'll be the next day at 6 p.m. But Thursday at 8 p.m. with Dean Alioto. And don't forget to check out the merchandise, the new merchandise. The links right down below on YouTube and down in the podcast as well. And check out our blog and all that. And thank you again, everyone. And remember to keep your eyes to the